weirdo. Oof. I don't get no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me. Ever.
After they are done with Diddy, Jay-Z is up next to be exposed, right?
The moment Rymir Satterthwaite was rushed into the hospital, everything stopped. The cameras, the headlines, the speculation, all of it suddenly felt darker. This wasn't just a footnote in some celebrity feud. This was a 31-year-old man whose body finally seemed to buckle under the pressure of a battle that had consumed nearly half his life. And the timing? Beyond suspicious. Just as his lawsuit against Jay-Z was picking up steam again, as a legal team representing one of the most powerful men in music scrambled to extinguish a very public fire, Rymir was wheeled into a hospital bed, weakened and silent. Was it just stress? A breakdown from the decade-long war for identity and recognition? Or was something far more sinister playing out behind the scenes?
Because, I really wanted to find out who my father was, and for the case not to go how I was planning it, I really thought it was going to go different than...
For those of us who've been following this saga, Rymir's fight hasn't been about clout or money. It's been about a name, one name, and the man who refuses to give it to him. From the start, Rymir insisted that his mother, Wanda, had a brief relationship with Sean Carter back in 1992 when she was only 16. The math adds up, the documents back it up, and every step of the way, he's been met not with empathy, not with answers, but with sealed records, legal tricks, and what his legal team has repeatedly called fraudulent interference. And now he's in the hospital, at the most pivotal moment of his life, as he once again tried to force Jay-Z into a DNA test. Rymir's body gave out. Or was it forced to? Because here's where things get murky, and fast. According to a source close to Dr. Lily Coley, the woman who stood as Rymir's legal guardian since his mother passed away, strange things started happening right after they refiled the lawsuit in New Jersey. Men following them, unmarked vehicles loitering outside their house, late-night phone calls. The kind of intimidation you read about in political thrillers, not in family court documents. Coley described a shadow descending over their lives, claiming she and Rymir both feared for their safety. One insider even alleged that a former associate of Roc Nation let it slip that the mogul was willing to do whatever it takes to make this nuisance go away. And then, out of nowhere, boom, Rymir collapses, he's hospitalized, and for the first time in over a decade, the courtroom goes quiet. Now look, it's easy to dismiss that as paranoia. A few shadowy figures and some anonymous threats don't exactly prove anything. But the rumor mill isn't known for silence, and what it's been screaming lately is this. Jay-Z allegedly sent men to confront Rymir, to pressure him, to push him into dropping the suit once and for all. It all not through negotiation, not through settlement, but through fear. No official connection has been established, of course, no fingerprints, no names. But intimidation doesn't always come with a paper trail. Sometimes all it takes is a knock on the door and a whispered warning to leave the past in the past.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both men.
But why? Why risk a scandal of this magnitude if there's truly nothing to hide? That's the real question, isn't it? Why not just take the test, end the speculation, prove your innocence with a simple cheek swab and walk away the victor? Instead, Jay-Z's legal team has spent years, literal years, arguing jurisdiction, playing legal hot potato between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. At one point, his lawyer outright lied about Jay-Z owning property in New Jersey, only to later admit she misspoke. According to New Jersey law, knowingly providing false information in court filings is, well, not exactly a minor slip. And it's these kinds of mistakes that have fueled the theory that Jay-Z is terrified of what a DNA test might reveal, especially since the timing of Wanda's pregnancy suggests she was underage when she allegedly slept with him. And this is where the tragedy deepens. Wanda isn't here to speak anymore. She passed in 2019, after years of trying to get courts to hear her voice. Her demise left Rymir alone in this fight, stripped of the one person who was willing to risk everything to expose the truth. There's still no official word on what exactly caused Wanda's passing, but friends close to the family say she spent her final months overwhelmed, exhausted, and terrified that her son would never know who he really was. The silence surrounding her demise has only made people whisper louder. Was it natural? Was it pressure? Or was it part of a long game, the kind of strategy a billionaire could afford to play when the stakes were legacy?
Apartment building, and they did what they did in there, talked a little bit, had a good time, party, and I guess had sex. Because, I can't fully talk as my mom because I'm not my mom. I'm just telling you guys what she told me. It was this. And I honestly just believe it. You know, it's just no doubt in my mind.
Even now, 5 years later, there are whispers that Wanda had started writing a memoir, something raw, something she planned to publish herself. That manuscript, if it existed, has never surfaced. No one knows where it went or if it was even finished. What we do know is this: after she passed away, the fire didn't go out, it transferred. Rymir became the flame, and now, as he lies in a hospital bed, possibly recovering from something more than just physical fatigue, the flame flickers again. Jay-Z hasn't responded publicly to the latest hospitalization. No statement, no comment, just silence. And the same silence he's kept when pressed about the alleged threats. For a man who's built an empire on words, the refusal to say a single one to the man who claims to be his son speaks volumes. It's not just legal indifference anymore, it's personal. According to court filings, Jay-Z has never once written to Rymir, never acknowledged his existence, never so much as offered a denial directly. Not even when his own attorney was caught making false statements to block a court-ordered DNA test. If the allegations are false, wouldn't the natural thing be to set the record straight? But that hasn't happened. Instead, we're looking at a situation where power meets silence, and silence, in this case, has weight.
Has done things and allegedly participated in a lot of things that the public would not be happy to know.
And behind that silence is a legacy. Jay-Z isn't just a rapper anymore. He's a brand, a billionaire, a husband to Beyonce, a father, an empire. And if even a fraction of these claims were proven true, that he knowingly fathered a child with a 16-year-old, then used his power to bury the evidence, the damage would be catastrophic. Not just to his reputation, but to the machine he's built around it. His role in the Diddy allegations is already threatening to crack that image. Add a paternity scandal with potential criminal implications, and suddenly it's not just legacy on the line, it's survival. And let's not forget the backstory here. Rymir's mother, Wanda, wasn't some groupie making wild accusations. She swore under oath that she and Carter were involved. She identified him as the father long before the fame reached its current heights. And when the courts tried to bury her case under technicalities, jurisdictional games, age loopholes, she didn't back down. She passed that fight on to Dracoli, who continued pressing for answers even after losing Wanda. Together, they've fought every appeal, every sealed record, every shady motion designed to keep the truth just out of reach. And now, with Rymir hospitalized and his mother's voice silenced forever, one question remains: who will stand up to Jay-Z?
I got older and my mom just continued to say the same thing, and she never changed the name. Like, you know, she always was staying with the same name. I'm like, well, Mom, why? Like, as I got to 16, 17, I'm like, Mom, you've been saying this since I was a kid. So it's like, now my mom never lied.
And yet, as we stare into the uncertainty of Rymir's condition, a chilling sense of déjà vu creeps in. Because this isn't the first time Jay-Z's name has brushed against shadows and silence. We've seen this storm before, back in 2001, when the music world lost a star that burned too brightly, too fast. Aaliyah, 22 years old, gone in a blaze of twisted metal and unanswered questions. Her fatal plane crash was ruled an accident, but let's not pretend that explanation ever satisfied the whispers. The rumors haven't just lingered, they've evolved, resurfaced, and tangled themselves into conspiracy threads so dark and specific they refuse to go away. What if her end wasn't just tragic, but orchestrated? We've long known there was a triangle brewing behind the velvet curtains of late 90s R&B royalty. Aaliyah, Dame Dash, and yes, Jay-Z. Before her whirlwind relationship with Dash became public, industry insiders claim Jay-Z had tried hard to win her over. Some say he was obsessed, that he saw in her something that couldn't be bought, a force, a freedom, a threat. And according to former Rockefeller insiders, it didn't sit well when Dame swooped in and claimed that spot. Jealousy, resentment, the classic story. But this wasn't a love triangle in a high school drama. These were men with power, egos, and millions at stake.
Why the f would you need to sign a don't ask about a plane crash if it was accidental?
Yeah. Do you feel like...
Riddle me that. Riddle me that. Work with me here in this moment.
And I'm gonna ask you.
A plane crash should be accidental.
Should be.
And then came the crash. A private plane rushed at the last minute. Overweight, improperly loaded, piloted by a man later found to have had toxic substances in his system and no proper clearance to fly. But that's not even the strangest part. A young island local, Kingsley Russell, later claimed that Aaliyah didn't want to board the plane, that she was visibly uncomfortable, had voiced her fears, and was reportedly given a sedative, a pill, before being carried unconscious onto that aircraft. Let that sink in. She may not have walked onto her own final flight. Now, we're not saying Jay-Z had a hand in that tragedy, but the eerie parallels are impossible to ignore. Aaliyah was at a point in her career where she was gaining control, making choices, carving her own path. Just like Rymir, who, despite being up against a billionaire machine, refused to go away. And both were silenced in the most permanent ways. One lost to the sky, the other clinging to life in a hospital bed after being allegedly threatened into silence. What happens to people who push too close to the edge of this empire? The entertainment industry has always had its dark corners, the secrets, the settlements, the NDAs that float like ghosts across boardrooms and dressing rooms. But with Jay-Z, we're talking about someone who not only survived the rap wars of the 90s, he mastered them. He turned criminal charges into credibility, flipped scandals into branding, and partnered with everyone from presidents to tech moguls. So when someone like Rymir starts pulling at a thread tied to the very beginning of that empire, when a name like Aaliyah still echoes with unresolved pain, it's not hard to believe that machine would activate to protect itself.
Why would any testimony about what happened leading up to it need to be covered under a non-disclosure agreement if there wasn't foul play?
Now, mind you, September 11th happened a week later. 9/11 happened a week later. Do you think that took away from it?
Once again.
Let's talk about Beyonce for a moment, because if you think she's just a bystander in all of this, you're not paying attention. According to legal sources close to the case, there have been private mediation attempts behind the scenes, not just from Carter's camp, but from the broader Carter Knowles team, attempts to squash, delay, or discredit the claims before they hit public courts. Beyonce has publicly built her image on motherhood, empowerment, and justice. But behind closed doors, has she been pulling strings to protect her husband's legacy? Insiders suggest she's been far more involved in legal strategy than the public knows, attending select briefings, signing off on communications, and allegedly suggesting aggressive media pushback when Rymir's lawsuit gained traction.
There are people who did short sales on their stocks right after that, made a lot of money, including Sean Carter. Now I'm going to ask you, why would non-disclosure agreements need to be signed for an accident?
And here's where it gets murkier. Just days before Rymir refiled his latest case, Carter was named in a separate civil suit, one that also included his longtime friend and fellow mogul, Sean Diddy Combs. The allegations? Unspeakable acts at a 2000 afterparty. The same year Aaliyah passed away. The same circle of power. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing is enough to raise eyebrows and questions. Because if the walls start closing in from multiple directions, it becomes more urgent than ever to discredit or silence the one person who could tear the whole narrative apart. We can't forget that Jay-Z's legal team has fought tooth and nail to keep records sealed, avoid testimony, and most notably, dodge any requirement for a DNA test. Despite public records showing his ties to multiple New Jersey properties, his lawyers argued he didn't live in the state. Despite Pennsylvania courts closing the case due to age cutoffs, they insisted the matter couldn't be refiled in New Jersey. It's been a legal ping-pong match spanning over a decade, and every time Rymir got closer, another procedural wall went up. But who builds those walls? And why are they afraid of a simple truth?
So at what age then did you start to question, who your parents could be?
Well, I wouldn't say I started to question it, but I said around like 7, maybe 6. And I think it started at 6. And my mom was just telling me that my father wasn't my father. But as a kid, I really didn't look too much into it because
there are two kinds of power in this world, the kind you earn and the kind you protect. Jay-Z has spent years doing both, but protecting power often means controlling the narrative and those who challenge it. With Wanda gone, Dracoli aging, and Rymir possibly incapacitated, the opposition is weakening. And that's exactly when the empire strikes hardest. If Rymir doesn't survive this, or if he survives and walks away, the paternity claim vanishes, the lawsuit ends with him, and the narrative returns to normal.
I was a kid and I honestly didn't know what she was talking about. But, I did hear her, as I got older, 7, 8, 9, 10, and she continued with the same story. My mom wasn't crazy. She gave us everything. She would give if you say give your life up for your kids right now, it wouldn't take a second for her to give her life up. She was just a lovely person, like everyone who knew my mom.
For over a decade, the core of Rymir's legal crusade hasn't just been about paternity. It's been about peeling back the layers of a justice system that seems to bend when billionaires enter the room. The case files are riddled with irregularities, sealed documents without clear cause, motions dismissed on flimsy technicalities, and contradictory property records that, when challenged, were simply brushed aside. One of the most damning moments came when Jay-Z's attorney openly admitted to misspeaking in court about the mogul's residency, a statement that effectively blocked the case from proceeding in New Jersey. Under state law, knowingly providing false information during court proceedings qualifies as fraud, yet no sanctions were issued, no consequences. The moment passed, and the case quietly stalled again. Behind those sealed records lies what Rymir's team has described as a systemic effort to erase his claim before it can ever be heard in full. Judges have recused themselves mid-proceeding without explanation. Orders have been handed down that reference non-existent gag clauses, and in a move that raised even more red flags, key court filings were marked confidential, not to protect minors or sensitive medical data, but seemingly to obscure procedural failures that favored Jay-Z's side. Legal analysts reviewing the timeline have pointed out multiple instances where court due dates were inexplicably extended, where sanctions were imposed on Rymir's team without justification, and where critical evidence vanished into sealed court archives. Every road seems to lead to a standstill, not by law, but by design.
Never got anything, so why wouldn't I believe my mom? Like, we could have been settled this, and it only takes a conversation and some words. I'm not a hateful guy. I don't hate anyone. I'm not after nobody. I'm not trying to see no one downfall. But this is just some things that just went through court, and they just expected me to just sit there and just take what they were saying. I can't do that, because
this isn't just a personal battle anymore, it's a cautionary tale. Because if this can happen to someone like Rymir, who had sworn affidavits, documentation, and over a decade of persistence, what chance does anyone else have when standing up against the celebrity class? The intersection of wealth and justice has never been more exposed. We're watching, in real time, how access to elite lawyers and backroom influence can distort the very concept of fairness. And perhaps most chilling of all, this might not be an isolated case. How many other voices have been silenced, their truths buried under confidential stamps and procedural traps, simply because they dared to challenge the wrong name?
I don't have no felonies. I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that, you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
But not for us. Not for those who remember how the industry turned its back on Aaliyah's questions, who still ask what really happened in the Bahamas, and who gave the final word that pushed her onto that plane. Because whether it's whispered in a backstage hallway or scribbled in sealed court filings, there's a pattern emerging. A pattern of people getting close to something and then disappearing, one way or another. We've seen how the system reacts to disruption. We've watched how survivors are dismissed, how lawsuits disappear, how settlements come with silence. But with the allegations surrounding Diddy now opening floodgates across the industry, Jay-Z's name is no longer untouchable. And Rymir may be the last person holding the key to a truth Carter's team has spent years trying to bury. As the scandals mount around Jay-Z, one thing is becoming clear. The truth always finds a way to surface. But with Rymir fighting for his life and the shadow of Aaliyah's demise still lingering, will we ever uncover the full story? Or will the powers that be bury the truth forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know. Is this all just coincidence, or are we finally seeing the cracks in the Carter Kingdom? Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and remember, silence always leaves a trail. /